The following is a paid advertisement. The views expressed are the sole responsibility of the advertiser.
Put the power back in your hands. This is Behind the Law with attorney Justin Clark.
Welcome to Behind the Law. Happy weekend to you. We have a wonderful show lined up. You will not want to miss a single second, but allow me, as always, to introduce you to my beautiful co-host. Wearing blue today, Makaila Nichols. Hello, Makaila. How are you?
I'm great.
Are you ready for
I'm
this?
not feeling blue, though.
You're not feeling blue?
No, I like the color.
Wonderful. You are the voice of the people at home. You're not a lawyer. I am a lawyer. You ask the questions that the non-lawyers at home have that I might just assume that everyone knows.
Yeah, and, we don't know, so that's why I'm here.
Well, that's good. That's why we are here for you every single weekend. If you have any questions whatsoever, it's 321-282-1055. Here live. So you might want to talk to us on the air, maybe off the air. No matter what your question is, you will get a free answer. Again, 321-282-1055. Now, Makaila's a bit younger than me. She taught me some new tricks about things the other day, and QR codes. Mm-hmm. We've been doing QR codes for other people on the show, but I never thought, let's do one if you have a question directly for me.
What a genius idea.
You have
it took you long enough.
You have all the great ideas. So Derek Moser has agreed to put a QR code on the screen as of right now. If you have any questions about law, any sort of thing we talk about here, pull your phone out and what do you do? What do you
just
call
scan it, and then
You
it's going to
scan it.
pop up this thing, and then you click it.
And it'll go right to me. I'll answer them. Great show just ahead. We're going to talk about student loans. More importantly, even about investing in your future. It's all just ahead. As Behind the Law continues. Are you worried about your student loan payments? I don't blame you. The great news for you is now we have more options than ever. Go to our website, youhavepower.com, to find out what options may exist for you and your student loans. Welcome back to the show, and really this is hot off the presses right now. The Supreme Court could rule very soon on this whole student loan defense, student loan, just wiping out your student loans that has been proposed. And really it was passed via executive order, but the Supreme Court is going to decide this very soon. Here's what happened. And let's be very clear, a lot of you have student loan debt, and over the last 2 or 3 years, you haven't had to really pay it because it's been in a moratorium. So you never had student loan debt. Your dad saved and paid your way through college, but the vast majority of people who have gone to college do have student loan debt, and it's become a real problem. Student loan debt is different than other debt, like your Visa card or American Express card. If you owe money on your student loans and you didn't pay them, bad things could happen. So they don't have to sue you. If you don't pay your student loans, they just can come in and garnish your paycheck, take money from you, and it's much easier for them to do that. A lot of us have been lulled to sleep since March of 2020. That is when the pandemic hit, as you know. That is when there was this moratorium placed on your student loan payments. So what that means is you haven't had to pay them, period. No one's had to pay their federal student loans since March of 2020. That's all coming to a screeching halt here soon, starting in October of this year. So ladies and gentlemen, mark it down right now. If you have student loans, why are you smiling at me still? Is it because you didn't have student loans and you think this is a game?
I've been thinking about interjecting you, but everything you're saying just seems so relevant. But is it? I don't know. So you can continue with your...
Well, think about it right now. So many people are sitting at home and they have student loans, okay? And they've really created a new life over the last 3 years, since March 2020, a new budget since then. And what's going to happen, and why I think this is important, is because literally starting in October, you're going to have to start paying your student loan payments again. And I'm not gonna mince words here. These servicers of your student loans are idiots, okay? They're really not easy to work with at all. And if you've tried to work with them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You call one person, they say this thing. You call another person, it's something totally different. It's very analogous to people who were going through a foreclosure back in 2008, 9, and 10, and you would call Bank of America and say, hey, I want to do a loan modification. And it was just like a dead-end street. It was very difficult. Same exact thing is happening with your student loans, but there have been big changes over the last really year, okay? So my firm is, I don't know anyone else here locally that deals with student loan debt. I really don't, because it's very hard. You have to know what you're doing. What we've noticed, though, over the last year or so is they've made it a little bit easier for us to deal with your student loan debt and different ways to deal with it. sometimes it's discharge. A lot of times we're able to get the student loans completely and totally wiped out. Things like public service loan forgiveness program for those of you that work in the medical field. Teachers, we see a lot of teachers who are getting their student loans discharged, but they make it really hard. They make it seem simple, but it's actually really quite hard to get done. You have to consolidate into a certain loan program and then go back and get credit for payments that you've made in the past. And a lot of times people come in and they can get discharged without making another payment again.
Well, how would anyone even know to do this? Like everything that's coming out of your mouth, like I would not know if I had a student loan.
It's hard. It is very confusing, and it differs based on federal versus private loans, who the servicer is, what type of loan you have. It's a disaster still. But it's going to be a disaster in October for sure, because that is when we all have to start paying them again. So when do you think the best time to deal with that is? It's right now. You have to get ahead of this, because starting in October, you've got to pay them again. How much do you pay them? Who do you pay? How much do you owe total now? These are all questions that we're not going to know the answer to, and we're dealing with government bureaucracy. So there's a lot of red tape and a lot of questions, way more questions than answers. And I think it's super important that you listen to this right now. If you have student loan debt, your children have student loan debt, maybe you have a Parent Plus loan, there are things that you can do. My fear for you is if you wait until October, it's going to be too late. QR code on the screen right now to ask me questions about this directly. I'm not charging you for this. This is free. This show is free. That is why we do this show, to keep you informed as to what's really going on down in the trenches when it comes to legal issues. QR code on the screen again. Take your phone out. The message gets right to me. Or call me directly if you want, 321-282-1055. A huge political issue, though, as well, Makaila, okay? And let me ask you your thoughts on this. I'm not trying to get political here. We avoid that. But so President Biden issued an order essentially wiping out $10,000 to $20,000 worth of everyone's student loans, okay? He just said they're all wiped out, 10 to 20 grand. No matter what. You can only make a certain amount of money or whatever, but generally speaking, they're going to wipe out $10,000 to $20,000. So a lot of people who have, not gone to the Red Lobster every Friday night and saved their money have paid the loans down, and now they're mad about that because they paid their loans off, and they're like, well, why is this guy getting the student loan reduced, and I've worked so hard and saved to pay my loans off? Thoughts?
That was kind of scary. You're just like, hey, your thoughts. Well, I better not say the wrong thing here.
You are wearing blue today.
Whatever. Well, no, I mean, I'd be pretty mad too if I was paying it because I'm doing the right thing, and then Joe Schmo over there is just getting his student loans taken away. That's not really fair. Are they going to get money back or no?
Who?
The people that already paid.
No, there's no money back either, and that is the real political divide in this decision right now. On the Democrat side, they want to wipe them out, and the Republicans don't want to wipe them out. And we're not choosing sides here, of course.
It's just funny that's how it's set up.
But that is the big debate, and it was all done through an executive order. It was not done through Congress or anything like that. And so a lot of the Republicans got together and sued to stop this. So literally, we were filing applications for people to get the $10,000 or $20,000 reduced, thinking that was just going to happen. And then this case has gone up to the Supreme Court. In fact, maybe by the time I talk to you next week, we will have an answer on this, because the Supreme Court is supposed to speak very, very soon about this issue. And look, I see both sides of it. Here's what I really think, though. The people who have major student loan problems, generally speaking, are not the ones that went to UCF or the University of Tennessee. The real student loan problem that we have in this country is the person that went to one of these for-profit schools, okay? When the economy was terrible, they were marketing to you to go to this for-profit school. Hey, you can't get a job anyway. You might as well come to school. And you paid them $100,000. Now you owe them $150,000. And they promised you great wages when you got out. What happened is, when you got out, you still couldn't find a job, but you owed over $100,000 in student loan. Now, the person who has gone to one of these very bad for-profit schools, and they get out owing $150,000 and not making a lot of money, that's a problem. And do you think wiping out $10,000 for that guy really helps anything at all?
No.
It doesn't. And that's the problem. This $10,000 wipeout thing, or $20,000 wipeout, is not helping the people who really have student loan debt. Questions about student loans, get ahead of it. Again, 321-282-1055. The QR code on the screen as well, directly to this guy.
That guy.
As long as she's got it all set up right.
Thank you. I mean, no pressure.
Speaking of money, one of our very good friends is John Ledford, certified financial planner. I've been sending so many clients from the law firm to him, and they're raving about him. This is very important stuff about your money coming up just as Behind the Law continues. Do I ever have a very special gift for you today? Compliments our good friends over at Universal Roof and Contracting. 15% off your roofing job. The roof is the most important part of your house. No doubt about it. Welcome my good friends as always, Justin and Corey. Hi, how are you today?
Good, man, good. Thank you.
The roof is the most important part of the house, but sometimes deciding who your roofing company is going to be is the most important decision as well. Culture is everything. Sure. When determining who's going to do your roofing job, Universal, the culture over there blows me away. Trustworthy. Tell me about the culture at Universal.
Yeah, I mean, 30 years in the making, right? Family-owned, veteran-owned, same name and ownership over the past 3 decades. We're so proud to be so rooted in Orlando, and we have offices in Jacksonville and Southwest Florida, but the honest approach, the integrity we carry, working transparently with insurance companies and homeowners alike. I mean, we approach roofing the way an honest company really should.
Trusted by some of the biggest sports teams in Florida as well.
That's right. That's right. We this past season we were the one of the partners with the Jacksonville Jaguars, which was awesome. They had a great season this year too. And then just coming next month, the XFL, the Orlando Guardians. We are the official roofer for the Orlando Guardians, so we're excited to go out to those games and see everybody there. So it'll be great.
A roof can be expensive. You created great programs to make this roof not cost prohibitive for me.
Yeah, I mean, last thing we're going to do is take food off people's plates to afford a roof. So we have a ton of flexible financing plans that just keeps things very liquid for homeowners, even if they don't want to use their own money, even if they have it at the time, so we offer that as well for every roof replacement.
I have this QR code on the screen right now. Get your phone out or go to their website, but the QR code will go directly to Justin and Corey, and literally you get 15% off. But guys, you're going to come to my house and tell me what I really need, honestly.
Absolutely, yeah. Free inspection, first of all. It does cost nothing for us to come out. We're going to sit down with you, hear what you like about your roof, what you don't like about your roof, what problems you've had, and come up with a custom scope of work that makes sense for you.
Always a pleasure to see you both. There's only one company we trust when it comes to roofing. That is Universal Roof and Contracting. I'm attorney Justin Clark. If you're worried about your student loan payments restarting, call me now or visit youhavepower.com. Welcome back to the show. And look, I know none of us want to talk about death. I don't want to talk about death, but it is a fact of life. Is at some point, I'm not trying to get dark here, but it's a fact of life.
It sounds a little morbid.
Death and taxes, that's what they say. The problem is I, at the firm, see the backside of this, where people come in, their mom or dad or both have passed away. And now all of a sudden the brother that you were so close to or your sister that you love so much, now you guys are fighting. We're fighting about their money. And let me tell you something, if you have some assets, and I'm not even talking about a ton of assets, you really need to consider how your family is going to handle those assets after you pass on. I'd like to invite in John Ledford, of course, Fortress Wealth Group. John, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Having a wonderful day. Thank you.
We see different sides of this, although we probably see the same side of it as well. Normally, I'm dealing with it when a brother or sister's in and they're mad at their brother or sister because mom or dad passed away and left these assets, and now we want to fight over it.
Right.
You see it, hopefully, if we do the right thing, you see it earlier on, during mom and dad's lifetime. They come in and they say, look, I have these assets. I don't really know what to do to protect the assets and to prevent our family from fighting over them when I'm gone. How does that conversation normally go early on?
Yeah, so, it's interesting. Everyone has a different orientation to how they want to deal with things like this. And I kind of see it in two camps. I see it in the more professional camp, and I see it in what I'd maybe call the do-it-yourselfer camp. And I grew up in a do-it-yourselfer household. My dad was like, you need a car, let's go build one. So that's the world I grew up in. The world I live in now, I don't pay for anything. Like I don't do anything. I pay someone to do absolutely everything. And a little bit different style, that I'm growing up in now. But oftentimes, I might meet with a family and they might have assets, and most people have some assets. They're not all in a neat bundle. Oftentimes, they're in a lot of different places, and they might say something like, "Well, that asset has a beneficiary on it, and that asset has a joint tenant, and that asset has another joint tenant." Oftentimes, if someone is more of the do-it-yourselfer mentality, they maybe don't want to go see a lawyer. They maybe don't want to pay for a will, trust, and estate plan. They want to kind of piece it together themselves. That's where we tend to see the most horror stories, and that's what we counsel people away from. A great financial plan always ends with a great estate plan. Because what's the sense of doing all these amazing things during your lifetime, investing well, saving on taxes, all this stuff we talk about, and then ultimately have chaos upon your death, And so most people who are good financial stewards, they want that to extend beyond their lifetime. And so we get involved as early as possible. How do we make things simple? How do we coordinate it? What are the right strategies to put in place? Sometimes I get in the same position, though, that you mentioned. It's not an uncommon that maybe someone has referred to me and we sit down and they say, my mom or dad just passed away. I have 1 or 9 siblings. It doesn't really matter. I was closest. And so my mom named me as the joint tenant on the assets. What am I supposed to do? My brothers and sisters want their 1/9 share, but mom named me and gave it all to me. And so what do I do?
Right.
And I say call Justin because that's a legal issue. I'm going to stay out of it. But it's super complicated. It's super complicated, especially if there's a lot of assets. You can't just go giving away, hundreds of thousands of dollars without there being other estate and tax complications as a result.
Yeah, and it really is disheartening. You spend your entire lifetime working so hard to develop these assets, and then the very thing that you've worked so hard for is going to tear your family apart. When you pass away. Don't let that happen to you. I have a QR code on the screen right now, and we'll connect you with John immediately. He has this estate planning checklist. It's super easy. I've seen it. It's not complicated, but it's a very good way for you to assess what's going on in your financial world and make sure you are prepared for that next part of life, and the next part of life for your children as well. You can hit the QR code or call 321-282-1055. Now, John, I hear about, should I get a trust, not get a trust? It's a big debate, it seems like, for people. What do you tell people when they ask about a trust?
So I and most financial advisors are big fans of living trusts. And the reason we are is that it creates a very singular lens to address how someone wants to deal with all of their assets. So rather than there being this piecemeal approach, right? Everything basically says we want the trust to own everything. In most cases, we want the trust to be the beneficiary of everything. And then the follow-up conversation is how do we want these assets distributed? And the trust would address all of those things as well. So the first thing a trust does, it creates coordinated planning, which is something that we really, really love. Yeah. It also creates, as we know, a probate avoidance, which is typically 3 to 6% in the state of Florida, and that's on the gross size of the estate. So it could be an extremely large amount of money. And then a trust also creates privacy. So if I have a living trust and you're my trustee and Makaila's the beneficiary, the only people involved in that transaction are the 3 of us. And so long as it's set up properly and it's funded properly and administered properly, it's completely private. And so when I pass away, no one can go down to the courthouse and look at my probate file and see what was John really worth. I think it was X, it's really Y, and I think I'll call all of his beneficiaries and see how they're doing. No one gets to do that with a trust. It's all a private mechanism, which is not only just an asset transfer issue, but also during your lifetime, can avoid guardianship and all kinds of other issues. And so if someone has an estate, in most cases, if they have assets other than just a home and a retirement plan, they have other investment assets that are in excess of, say, $100,000. In most cases, most estate planning attorneys are going to say you'd be better served by having a living trust than by having just a traditional will.
Got it. What all types of assets can I put into a trust?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's funny because when I first got in this business years ago, we built our business by doing estate planning seminars. And in those days, it was not in vogue, if you will, to put homestead real estate inside of a trust.
Right.
There was a question that a lot of attorneys posed that obscures the homestead protection, all that other kind of stuff. I think that's pretty well settled business at this stage of the game. And so most people put their their home in the trust. Most people put their investment assets in the trust. A lot of people put life insurance in the trust. They usually do not put retirement assets, and we usually advise against putting liabilities in the trust, things like automobiles and things that are going to potentially generate liabilities for us. We usually advise not to put those in the trust as well.
Got it. How do you think a trust really helps someone? So when a client comes in, they have $300,000 to protect. How does a trust really protect them?
Well, let's start with the psychological side. Because really in everything that we do, there's a financial component and there's a psychological component. And the older I get, the more time I spend on the psychological side. And I've realized that's way more important. And so one of the first things a trust does is it creates clarity and peace of mind. And so rather than people wondering, I was in a meeting this morning, and the gentleman was saying, I've got to get these things clarified and accomplished because they're kind of driving me crazy. And oftentimes our brains kind of swirl on things that bother us. So the trust creates a sense of peace, if you will, which is really the first thing I'm after anyway in counseling a client. The second thing it does is it creates certainty. Certainty as to what's going to happen to these assets. How are they going to pass from me to my wife and I down to our children? How are they going to do that? And I know how they're going to do it, and I know in most cases, if it's designed properly, that they're going to do that as efficiently as possible. One of the things that comes up in these conversations and that's on our checklist is, how do you want your beneficiaries to receive assets? It's a pretty big question. If you pass away, do you want them to get a big check? I was 19 once, and I didn't need millions of dollars then, and if I had them, I probably wouldn't be here today. And so one of the things we talk about is if you have children, minor or otherwise, how and when do they get it? I'm a big fan of what's called incentive trusts. That's what my kids have. So
go on.
Scary,
So essentially, the more productive they are, the more money they get. And so if child A walks in with a tax return that has a number on it, he gives it to the trustee writes him a check to match that number. And so all kids ultimately, and we have 4 children, so ultimately the 4 children are treated equally, but they're treated equally based upon their perception, their attitude, their ability to generate income.
I love it. But that is the control that you can have when you start planning ahead, when you start protecting those assets. You're really protecting your future family as well. John Ledford, excellent job as always.
Thank you.
And thank you for this checklist. And by the way, this checklist is fantastic. It is going to give you an opportunity to see what you have, where it's all spread out, and how in the world, if something happens to you, you're going to be able to pass it down to the people you love the most, your children, your grandchildren. This dictates everything, and it does it privately where no one's going to get involved in your business. QR code on the screen right now. It's totally free, by the way. Completely free. John's going to put this together for you for free. QR code on the screen, or 321-282-1055. A very quick break. You know, sometimes families don't work out. You're going through a divorce, custody issues. What are you to do as Behind the Law continues? So happy to be here at Ocala Realty World. I love Ocala, love Marion County. Pleased to be joined by Alicia Lopez. Hi, Alicia, how are you?
Good, thank you.
This area of Florida, this area of the country is stunningly beautiful. A lot of people are moving here. What would you tell them about Marion County and Ocala?
I would say that you get kind of the best of both worlds. So close to Orlando, to Tampa, even Gainesville, but still so far away from everything that little rural, kind of away from it all feeling. You can still get that here, and you don't have to be too far away from civilization if you don't want to, or you could be completely out in the middle of nowhere on acreage, whether you like horses or just a farm, or there's tons of luxury properties too on acreage here, so you really have a little bit of everything.
Stunningly beautiful. I'm a real estate agent thinking about hanging my license somewhere, or even maybe if I'm a real estate agent in another part of the state thinking about moving here. Ocala Realty World has a certain energy, a certain vibe. You care about your agents, don't you?
Oh yes, absolutely.
How do you make them so successful?
I love on them a lot, and I just think of any relationship. The best relationships are really the only relationships that even last is that you genuinely care about each other, so it's reciprocated from both sides, and our agents know that we really do want them to be successful. My husband and I, we were there We did all that stuff, and like we could still go out there and do that, but now we get to teach all of our agents and anyone that kind of would be that right fit for us to come on, and they could do the same as well and learn.
Beautiful brokerage you have here in a beautiful part of the world. And if you're looking to buy or sell anywhere here in the Ocala, Marion County area, or if you were an agent looking to really propel your career, look no further than Ocala Realty World. I'm attorney Justin Clark. If you're worried about your student loan payments restarting, call me now or visit youhavepower.com. And as always, today we wrap it up with What Did We Learn? Makaila Nichols, what did you learn?
I learned a lot, Justin, but because you put me on the spot earlier, you have to go first.
I did. I mean, I tried to set you up to, because it's broadcast television. You're not supposed to really say which side you're on. And I wanted to set you up to see if you would realize that. And you did a very good job of sort of governing yourself on that.
Yeah, I just was like, and anyway. But yeah, student loan debt, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's time to pay the piper with your student loan starting in October. Get ahead of it right now. And John Ledford never ceases to amaze me. And since he's been coming on this show, we have had a lot of clients that have gone over to Fortress Wealth Group and just rave reviews. Like he cares, and
he
I think
does,
sometimes
and he knows his stuff too.
He knows his stuff, and when it comes to money, when it comes to life, health important. Money's right.
Health and wealth, baby.
Health and wealth, baby. So thanks to John Ledford. Thank you to you, Makaila, and as always, thank you. We'll see you next week for more Behind the Law. Hurricane season definitely upon us, and we all think, oh, we'll go to the grocery store and get some water bottles and some paper towels, but there's something important in your house right now that is very important when it comes to hurricane season, and that is your windows. Dan Brigman is here, Renewal by Andersen. Dan, you think about sitting around during a hurricane party or when you're getting through a hurricane with your family, playing a game or whatever you're doing, and when those winds really start to pick up, and you start hearing those windows vibrating, that gets scary. Why don't we think about windows when we think about hurricane prep?
You're absolutely right, Justin. It does get a little nerve-wracking. And one of the reasons we don't is because, when we think about windows, we think about energy savings. We think about, hey, does the thing go up and down? Are there bugs coming in? Is there any water around my windows? And things like that. We don't think about that, an 80, 90 mile an hour wind is enough wind to send something through that window. If you're sitting in there playing Monopoly, send it through the window, hit you, and end the story.
It's not a good thing at all. I put the QR code on the screen right now. Dan has a very special gift for you in preparation for hurricane season to help protect your family by changing and upgrading your windows. Dan, for these people at home, what are you going to do?
Well, I can tell you this, it will not happen again before hurricane season, which we're already in, right? And so it's 20% off of anything and everything that we sell. So that's our windows and our doors. And so get it while you can.
I appreciate it very much, Dan. Great to see you. You will appreciate Renewal by Andersen, I assure you that. This is free, by the way. Hit the QR code on the screen or call the phone number right now. Totally free consultation with their design consultant. Call Renewal by Andersen today.
The proceeding was a paid advertisement. The views expressed were the sole responsibility of the advertiser.